Hi, I'm Laura McMahon-Higgins. Welcome back to Nasty or Necessary, the series where we examine common clauses from commercial construction contracts to answer the question, is it necessary or just plain nasty? Today we are going to look at pre-agreed deeds of novation. This is what the clause would look like in the contract between the principal and the contractor. In respect of each of its subcontractors, the contractor must, within 48 hours of execution of the subcontract, deliver to the principal a deed of novation in the form set out in Annexure D, signed by the contractor and the subcontractor. Then, this is what the clause would look like in the contract between the contractor and the subcontractor. Within 24 hours of subcontract execution, the subcontractor must deliver to the contractor a signed deed of novation in the form set out in Annexure D. To examine whether this is nasty or necessary, we really need to understand what novation is. As you may have guessed by the fact that there are two different clauses in two different contracts, novation is going to involve multiple parties. It's the process of replacing an existing contract with a new one, which is identical except for the fact that one party to the original contract is replaced by a new party. From the date of the novation, the new party assumes the rights and obligations of the original party, and the original party is released from any further obligations. A novation requires the consent of both the original parties and the new incoming party, in the form of a deed of novation, which is what we call a tripartite agreement, because it binds three people. So why would we want this in a construction setting? In one word, insolvency. Novation is a mechanism where a principal procuring complex works can use it to protect the project against the fallout of the contractor becoming insolvent. Let's look at what that fallout can look like. In other words, what will happen with no novation mechanism? Let's imagine that a principal engages a builder to construct a hospital, and the builder in turn engages a subcontractor to complete the electrical package. The works are 50% complete. The principal has paid the builder in full, but the builder, who's experiencing cash flow issues, has not paid the subcontractor's most recent claim of $5 million. The builder becomes insolvent, leaving the principal with a half-finished hospital. In order to complete the project, it makes sense for the principal to approach the same electrical subcontractor. But when the principal says, hey, why don't you finish the rest of the work for us and we'll pay you the other 50% of the contract value, a prudent subcontractor will say, we're happy to finish the work for you, but the price is the value of the outstanding works, plus the $5 million that we have not yet been paid. Now, in theory, the principal doesn't have to use that subcontractor. Rather than pay the $5 million, they're free to go back to the market, but often they find a new subcontractor is just as expensive because they're pricing the remaining works at the current market rates, which have obviously increased since the original subcontractor priced the project. With induction requirements and material lead times, using a new subcontractor will significantly delay the project, and the new subcontractor will not warrant the work done to date, only the new work they complete. This creates a warranty gap, where if the works are defective, the original subcontractor blames the new subcontractor and vice versa, meaning it can be very hard for the principal to pin down liability for defective work. So once the principal investigates the practicalities of going back to the market, all of a sudden, paying that extra $5 million doesn't actually look so bad. Now let's remember that this is only one subcontractor. If there are a dozen, the principal may simply not be able to afford to pay each subcontractor the value of the outstanding works plus the money owed by the insolvent builder. This is where novation comes in. If the principal has a deed of novation in its drawer that has already been signed by the builder and the electrical subcontractor, all it needs to do to effect a novation is to sign the deed itself. The deed of novation then cancels the original contract between the builder and the subcontractor and creates a new contract on the same terms between the principal and the subcontractor. But the obligations of the principal only kick in from the date of the novation deed, which means they have to pay for works completed from the date of the novation. But the liability to pay for work completed prior to the novation date remains with the insolvent builder. This means that the subcontractor has to complete the remainder of the project works directly for the principal and chase the builder for the $5 million it's owed, which if the builder is insolvent, it is very unlikely to recover. So you can see why a principal wants a pre-agreed deed of novation, to ensure that if the contractor becomes insolvent, they won't be left with a half-finished building they can't afford to complete. But you can also see that from a subcontractor's point of view, these clauses are problematic because they push the risk of contractor insolvency to the subcontractor who has got no visibility or control over the risk. So, necessary or nasty? Can I say both? I know it doesn't really work on a scale, but novation is necessary from a principal's point of view and nasty from the contractor's, which means you need to make a commercial decision as a principal whether you need this clause, and as a contractor, whether you're prepared to agree to one. If you are a contractor faced with these clauses, there are a few things we can do to mitigate the risk, such as insisting on project bank accounts, tight payment terms, or financially vetting a builder at the outset of a project. That wraps up this episode of Nasty or Necessary. If you found this helpful, please sign up to complete our online training course today, or reach out to request a contract review. Questamon Legals specialise in construction law, and we can negotiate your contract to ensure you're protected.